Yes, hello, I am James Rowlands and today it's the WNR347. What a huge show as we brace for Impact. We've got all the action since Sacrifice and before we go into Impact, we had our WrestleMania podcast on the Wednesday. Of course, the fantastic Jaxie Scarlett joining the WNR, and then on the Thursday, the day after, well, it happened again. This time last year, there was a raft of WWE releases, and exactly the same date as well, the 15th of April, WWE have confirmed the release of 10 superstars. Samoa Joe, Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Tucker, Kalisto, Mojo Rawley, Bo Dallas, Blake have all been cut from the roster. Now, of course, Wesley Blake might not be a surprise. Bo Dallas is a little bit of a shame, of course, because of the connections with Bray, and while they never did a tag team together, I just don't know. Mojo Rawley, again, nothing personal, but, you know, I've been saying for years that he should be released, and it finally has happened. Kalisto is a bit of a shame because he's really, really talented. Of course, the match against the Usos at TLC still remembered for me. Tucker, of course, been noticed and then been just chopped. Chelsea Green, that is Matt Cardona's wife, and looks like she might be heading to Impact. WWE legend Mickie James, of course, her husband is the NWA Heavyweight Champion. Billy Kay and Peyton Royce, the Iconics. I mean, Jackson and myself were thinking that, you know, maybe they would appear at WrestleMania. Of course, Billy Kay did, but that is that for them. I don't know what happened there. And of course, Samoa Joe, and that's huge news because he was on commentary for taking off, and the rumor was back on the roster. And we were wondering if he might be challenged Roman Reigns, but of course, he hasn't been cleared to compete. And where does he go from that? And I think all of them will be welcome in Impact Wrestling. Of course, Slammiversary last year was huge because of the WWE rivals. And again, you know, you look at, I mean, if they can get the Iconics for their knockout tag team division, I mean, that would be iconic. And I think Samoa Joe, with the history that he's got with Impact Wrestling, I mean, of course, everybody's saying AEW. But the thing is with Joe, with Impact, even if it is just a couple of appearances to kind of, you know, bolster his legend, so to speak. And speaking of Impact, we are going to start off now with the 16th of March. It's Sacrifice Fallout. Our first match was Finn Juice versus Triple XL. Your winners were Finn Juice. This is a jobber team, and the unhealthiest looking wrestler in AC lost a longer than usual squash. Of course, Finn Juice had just won the Impact Tag Team titles. And the Good Brothers make excuses, saying they weren't prepared for the match of Sacrifice. Good Brothers say they want their titles back, and Finn Juice tell them that's fine, but they have to wait as they're going back to Japan. Well, we see Sami Callahan, who repeats the fact that Trey Mcgill doesn't have the passion, nor does any of his students. He can't get the job done tonight and embarrass Trey Mcgill and make an example out of it. Passion. Scott D'Amore blames the Good Brothers for losing the tag titles to New Japan, but they will be back next month. They need to go and put this right. And Tommy Dreamer walks in and disappointed they have no tag team titles. D'Amore says that, yeah, they lost the titles to a company that's hated them for years. It's just like the company going under. It's not hard, right? Just do it like what happened with Dreamer and Heyman 20 years ago. Hardcore Justice is coming up, and guess Tommy wants to show how it's done by booking a show. Funny enough, Tommy already has a card set up, and Scott approves. Next match, Jake Something with James Storm and Chris Sabin versus Rhino with Violent by Design. Rhino wins with the gore. Violent by Design destroy James Storm and Chris Sabin after the match. It's not a bad match, but who will be the faces? Who will come to help them out? We see Jenna, Pratzo, Kimberly, Susan, Fire and Flavor and Tennille Dashwood argue among themselves, but the Knockouts champ tells them not to be cliche and find a way to get on the same page. And somehow it happens, but Dashwood doesn't get to share a quote before everyone leaves. We then get Rohit Raju versus Shira. The winner, Rohit Raju, the old feet on the ropes for the win trick. This feud is not over. And then Willie Mack congratulates his friend Swan. And when Swan is saying in the ring, though, and here comes the unified Impact World Heavyweight Champion, Rich Swann. He can't lie. Sacrifice was probably the hardest thing he had to go through in his life. Swan has made his sacrifices. Saturday, he and Moose went out there and proved Impact is one of the best companies with the best talent. He may despise Moose and how he carries himself, but he respects him. At Sacrifice, it just seems to be your boy Rich Swann who's riding that stallion because he came out double champion. That's unthinkable, unspeakable, and he did it. He went out there Saturday and he partied all night, Sunday, Monday, and today. In January, he had a monk on his back called Kenny Omega. He pinned him back then, but now it so happens that he come back around. On April 24th, Rich will come out here and rep Impact Wrestling as unified champ and take on another company's top champion. There will be no Good Brothers, a Moose, or a Chris Sabin. This is one of the most important things to happen in the history of wrestling. At Rebellion, he will be champion is, and the real best wrestler in the world. Well, here comes Don Callis. Rich has no idea how proud Don is right now. He senses a little hesitation, but he likes to talk history. You know that Don is a huge Rich Swann guy. He fought to sign Rich Swann to Impact. When he broke his leg, he fought to make sure his family got that check, and he's integral to the company. It's not that they have much in common, but he has an eye for talent. He fought to put Swann in the main event of Bound for Glory, a shiny toy he was so proud of. He moves on to the subject of Kenny Omega and the Sheik. There will always be something you desire more in Don's case, it was with Omega. Let's be positive, he has a big night after winning the titles, but did he wake up in the middle of the night thinking about the one-winged angel? At the end of the day, you can't change history. At Hard to Kill, he got the one-winged angel. As much as Don loves Swann, Omega is just that much better. He is a god in pro wrestling. That's a fact. Think about the history. When Kenny pinned Okada, when he wrestled Moxley for the AEW title, he was there. And when you listen on commentary, do you know what you hear? One-winged angel. One-winged angel. And it's over. And now Swann gets to be a part. Someone gets to walk out here with both belts. But Rich, my friend, the problem for him is that he's already written that history. Sleep well, brother. Don Lee Swann completely bewildered. This was actually brilliant. Swann winning would be good in so many different ways. Tony and Tony here plugging St. Patrick's Day Dynamite. Of course, we'll bring in the action with the Ultimate one next weekend. And one insult thrown Impact Bay this time. Maybe Tommy Dreamer's tweet got to them. Brian Myers walks in Cardona. He asks Myers what his problem is. He just doesn't want him there. He wants Impact to himself and he doesn't want to be associated with him anymore. Get out of here, Cardona. And then Deanna Pratzo, Kimberly, Susan Tenille Dashwood, Vara Flavor versus Jordan Grace, Jazz, ODB, Havoc, and Nevia and Alicia Edwards. Grace's team with Jazz's submission on Kimberly. This was brilliant. A showcase of Impact Women's Division. Her face get the wins with her heels still have the gold. And then we see Ace Austin once again stand tall at the top of the X Division. It was pure poetry at Sacrifice, the inevitable way. He knocked TJP down a peg, but last week Chris Bay said he lost to him. Josh Alexander takes exception to that. He's a real number one contender. TJP walks in front of the line, but Austin tells him to go to the back. Scott D'Amore's already agreed TJP will get his rematch, so he doesn't need to wait in line. And then Hardcore Justice was announced for April 10th. And my thoughts, you know what, people to watch it, you're going to put it on the same day as WrestleMania Night 1. And then Sami Callahan versus Trey Mcgill. I mean, Trey looked for a top rope move, but Callahan expertly manipulated Brian Heber, providing a momentary distraction that allowed him to deliver the package pile driver off the ropes. He finished Mcgill moments later with a package pile driver for the win. I thought we'd say this is pay-per-view, but the rematch, of course, looks like it's going to be at the Rebellion pay-per-view. This was a good show overall, there's no doubt about it. You know, the fallout from Sacrifice, a huge night, like we said, with Finjuice winning the titles, Rich Swann as double champ, and it sets the stage for the next pay-per-view. Will Hardcore Justice get in the way? We don't know. Move on to the 23rd of March, and we start off with Jenna Pratzo versus Jazz. And they kicked off the show here, and we see a pinfall attempt interrupted by Susan, who draped Pratzo's foot over the rope. Grace attempted to cut Susan off at ringside, but ate a shoe to the face. Moments later, the suit-wearing manager talking heel hopped on the apron and blasted Jazz with the same shoe, allowing a knockout champ to score the tainted victory. I mean, Jazz looked good, but the ending was terrible. This would lead to a rematch, but Susan getting involved is just kind of blah. And the Good Brothers are not welcome in the locker room. Eddie was told them to get out. Rosemary laughs at them for losing their titles. This was good shit. Well, Swingers Palace is open for business. Daddy, the cash is also flowing, and they keep dealing the cards. We get a few testimonials of how great Swingers Palace is. It really isn't. Rohit Raju tells Falabar he's an embarrassment. He wants to give him a fist later on in the ring. Rohit is a very great heel. He reminds me a little bit of MJF and the kind of arrogance. I don't think Rohit gets the credit maybe he deserves because it's Impact. Then we see the X Division Championship, Ace Austin with Madman Fulton versus TJP. The challenger tried for a detonation kick, but Austin escaped. He did not a second time low, and TJP followed with a Mamba splash. Fulton broke up the count, drawing the disqualification. He beat down TJP with Austin until Josh Alexander made a save, chasing the heels off with the steel chair. We saw some beautiful chain wrestling. This is some great chemistry. It's a really, really good match. And another match ending interference. It is great to see Josh show up. But where is Chris Bay at this moment in time? We don't know where he is, but we know where Matt Cardona is, because he said he came to Impact because all he ever wants to do is be a pro wrestler. Him since his debut at Hard to Kill before Miller transitioned to Myers. Cardona repeatedly said he did not come to Impact Wrestling to follow Myers or steal the spotlight. He ended the promo by challenging his podcast partner to a one-on-one match. We knew this was coming, and I'm personally really looking forward to it. Dream wants to book a barbed wire exploding death match. Not really. Tommy wants Trey to learn for his mistakes. That was quite a funny backstage skit. And then Rohit Raju versus Fowler Bar, and Bar flattened Rohit, but the mucker-skinned Manimal answered with a jumping knee. He rolled out the way with a sit splash and rolled Bar up for the win. Do you know what? I'm actually becoming a bit of a fan of Rohit. And then during the paid ad segment, Tony Schiavone announced that on Dynamite, Kenny Omega will fight Matt Sydal in a world title eliminating. If Sydal is victorious, he will get a future shot against Omega for Omega's AEW world title. Omega was a little bit standoffish as he corrected Khan for thinking that Sydal even having a chance of beating him. Omega says there's approximately a 0% chance of Sydal winning. This is what Kenny Omega said. No, Tony C, I did the math. That's approximately a 0% chance of that happening. Khan and Shivani were then caught off guard a bit when Kenny Omega walked out halfway through the paid ad, but continued during the segment by announcing the matches taking place on Dynamite. Then we see Kenny Omega return to the site of his victory of Rich Swann, accompanied by Don Callis in the Impact Zone. Callis recapped the conversation with Swann from last week, Omega adding the occasional soundbite. The Impact Executive Vice President Omega both emphasised that no one has ever kicked out of the one-winged angel, potentially setting up a key moment in the upcoming match with Swann. Callis said he's ready and willing to do whatever it takes to ensure the success and legacy of Omega. The Successful Hills throw to a video package highlighting Omega's one-winged angel. Omega says Swann's name will be etched alongside him in history, but only as a footnote. Omega says his arrival in Impact was the best moment in the promotion's life. For him, though, it was a Tuesday. Nothing more, nothing less. The Clean said no one will pry the Impact and TNA World titles. He will win at Rebellion from him until he's cold and dead into the ground. I mean, it is getting a little bit self-indulgent, isn't it? It is a kind of laugh and a joke. And I know it's a type of heel, but I think, this is what AEW thinks. I mean, is this similar to Heyman and Reigns in the case of, you kind of got Don Callis there? I think it's the other way around. Callis does more talking for Omega than Heyman does for Reigns, which is really, really impressive as well. Through that, Omega mentioned Ibushi. It's got to be the end game, and of course we're going to have a New Japan update in May as well, and of course there's some big news going down there, so maybe not title for title as we saw. Don said he is good at sucking. I'm not going to disagree. Rhino didn't need to be taught to be violent. He was born that way. He just needs to be woken up. Eric Young has brought back the War Machine, Rhino. This will be good for him, the widest professional wrestler in history. And then Fire and Flavor took smack to Navarre and Havoc, stepped up to the plate and earned that L. And then Tenille and Caleb were show up and asked Navarre to be her partner. It doesn't end well. And then AC Romero with Larry D versus Trey Mcgill. Romero caught with a body-shattering pounce. He can only keep two low. The babyface survived. And then delivered a Meteora and earned a hard-fought win. After the match, Larry D attacked John, his partner, in a 2-on beatdown on Miguel. And then Static engulfed the Impact zone as Sammy Callahan then cleared the ring and the hills, leaving Miguel to wonder what just happened. This story is evolving. Everybody watching Impact for the first time would have seen Fowler Bar and Ace Romero, the two most unhealthiest looking professional wrestlers, having a match on this. I mean, of course, AC is number one. And then backstage, after what Omega said tonight, do you think Jive Talker is going to get in Rich Swann's head? He battles adversity, broken backs, broken legs. He is a top dog. One-winged angel got the job done, but take everything he's got, and he's got Kenny's number. He's got a couple of tricks to avoid the one-winged angel. And then Scott Small tells James Storm that scene as he's taking about his 1000th match with Eric Young. Impact go back to his roots by having that match next week. And then Eddie Edwards versus Eddie evaded a stun gun and delivered a rolling elbow. He rolled Anderson up, but the heel kicked out, sending his opponent directly into a steel chair expertly placed by Gallows. Anderson benefited for the victory. Post-match, Vinges broke the Good Brothers v Satellite. The tag team titles are in Japan with them. This was a good match and another good show. And then we heard Eric Young had suffered a torn ACL Impact's most recent set of television tapings. He will be out of action for 6 to 9 months. He said, it's the first time I've injured and I missed my first festival show this Friday. I booked on 24 years of doing it, so it's frustrating. I've never been injured. Been hurt lots, but never been injured, and he's going to have surgery soon. He said he still had his match against James Storm on Impact, plus 2 more times during the tapings. What a man. Move on to the 30th of March. Before the show, we see footage of Finjuice glowing with the Impact Tag Team titles in Japan. We also get a recap of the feud between Kenny Omega and Rich Swann. Our first match, Havoc Navia versus Fire and Flavor, Kira Hogan and Tasha Steelz. Fire and Flavor win with a frog splash. This was a good match to start the show. Navia attacked and then spears Havoc afterwards. Seems they weren't on the same page after all. She calls Havoc the weak link. We have been waiting for this. James Storm is ready for his 1000th match in Impact Wrestling. As much as this should be a celebration, it's more of a dedication, because for a man who has made many matches, he wasn't even supposed to have one. He and Chris Harris were taken in by Bob Ryder, who'd recently passed away, and they were used, and the rest is history. Tonight he's bringing it to Eric Young and his friends. He has some friends of his own, though, in Chris Sabin and Jake Something. They pop and have a surprise for him. It's Chris Harris. America's Most Wanted are reunited. They hug it out and Harris congratulates him together. This was lovely. Of course, America's Most Wanted, the most pop in TNA, especially in the early years. We then see Jenna Pratzo with Susan. She just became Knockouts champ for a second time. She has become unstoppable. Susan thinks Jazz is reckless for taking out Kimberly and deserves more than what she got. Jazz blindsides Susan and knocks her out. And then Sami Callahan versus Larry D. Sami Callahan with rope guillotine pile driver. This was longer than it should have been. It was okay though. Ace Romero attacks Callahan from behind and leaves him laying. Sami's laughing and smirking. Apparently Trey Mcgill passed the story continues. We see footage of Finjuice this time performing in the ring of New Japan. Good stuff. Don Callis thinks that Finjuice is looking good, but the Good Brothers don't understand why he's impressed. Don says he don't have the belts and he wants to put the One-Winged Angel video on again, and has seen it 8 times already. They do a bit whispering to keep something secret. Sami Callahan finds Trey and says it isn't here to fight. He helped him out last week, so why wouldn't he return the favour? Callahan does everything for a reason. This is what Trey needs. He needs to use his anger and take it to the next level. He wants to be Trey's mentor. He's offering Trey the chance to carry Impact Wrestling into the next lifespan. But he doesn't give a damn about any of that. He wants to wrestle Triple XL next week and wants Trey to be his partner. But his reply is hell no. Callahan tells him to think about it. Up next, Suicide versus Brian Myers, and Brian Myers win with the roster cut lariat. This was a squash. He then grabs the mic, says Matt Cardona challenged him to a match, but you can see through him. He just wants to rub, but it's not going to happen in Impact Wrestling because it's his. He is a franchise of Impact, and it doesn't include him. And I tell you something, Myers is taking this game up another level. And then Jazz asks Tommy Dreamer if he sees Scott D'Amore. He wants Jenna Pratzo. Dreamer asks if she remembers Ultimate Jeopardy from ECW. Asks if she wants to face Jonah. And if she wins, she gets the title. If she loses, then she has to give something up. She offers to put her career on the line. Dreamer thinks that's a little far, but Jazz is positive. That's what she wants, and she won't lose. And then Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone running back. Dynamite is going to be stacked this week. There's going to be some great wrestling. Khan says that Kenny Omega becomes Impact World Champion. Their problems will become his problems. He controls the wrestling world. He is a forbidden door, and all bookings for Kenny Omega go through him. That's what Triple A found out. Schiavone tells us the rest of the card. We get Swinger's Palace Daddy. Johnny Bravo tells Swinger the bets for Rebellion looking great. He pleased with Swinger to let him go to the toilet, but he's just given a cut. Omega walk in and Swinger says he remembers this guy from TNA. Don thinks they're going to need to be tested after visiting this place. They have come to find what the odds are of Omega winning. Don shows Swinger the One-Winged Angel video, and the odds for Kenny go through the roof. The Swinger layers looking impressed. Callis places a big wager on Kenny winning, and Swinger's happy to be rolling the cash, daddy. This was shit. TJP and Josh Alexander versus Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. Your winners Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. Josh is class. I mean, Madman did most of the lifting this one, but it's a good match given time. And then Don Callis catches up with Willie Mack. Don has big plans for Willie. He wants to show him a certain video. Mack doesn't look impressed with the One-Winged Angel. Rich Swann walks in. Apparently Omega loves his finishing move and can't wait for him not to kick out of it. Rich said it was Don wasn't his boss. He'd slap the hell out of him and mocks the original Sheik. Callis takes off his glasses and says for the next few minutes he is not his boss. He wants to go with Rich right now, but it's a trap. Kenny Omega, it's a trap! Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers attack Swann and Mack. Eddie Edwards jumps in and they fight him off. Bastards. Rohit Raju wants to team up with Hernandez, but he doesn't want to be part of that unless he has the money. Raju quickly backtracks out of there. Eric Young finds it funny that Storm challenged him in his 1000th match. Violent Dwyer design had been cleansed by the holy waters of change. You want to know what 1000 matches means to me? It means Storm is too far gone. This company was built on the backs of men. The future of this world hangs in the balance. This world doesn't belong to you. It belongs to us. gathers a knockout division and announces Jazz challenge to Deanna Pratzo. Tommy asks Susan about her friend Sue, but she has no idea what he's talking about. Susan doesn't like any of his ideas. She gets a headache and walks out. Drew returns back to the knockouts and tells them there will be a scramble match beside the number one contender. Oh, and weapons will be allowed. And then the knockouts are happy about all this, all except Tenille, because you don't put weapons around a masterpiece. She and Caleb Burake will talk to Scott about this. Havoc tells Jimmy she loves this. Rosemary gets in his ear and says, "Ma'am." Then Alicia Edwards asks Tommy what the rules are for this. Tommy asks Scott and Eddie to come to get Alicia. He doesn't get her appeal. And then the main event, James Storm with Chris Sabin, Jake Something, and Chris Harris versus Eric Young with Vantage by Design. Winner James Storm with a last call and an assist from Chris Harris. James Storm dedicates match to the late Bob Ryder, R.I.P. This was a good main event. Told the story of Impact history. I loved Chris Harris' involvement and Young wrestling with the injury as well. It's not about episode, more about what's to come. And commentators, of course, put over the move to Thursday. So it is the first Impact back on Thursday, April 8th. And we start off Alicia, Nevaeh and Tenille Dashwood with Caleb Burake versus Jordan Grace, Havoc, Rosemary. Folks, this was a great way to start. Grace killed Caleb Burake with a top rope suicide. A really fun match. All good talent. Devon and Havoc had their problems. Both end up through the table. Rosemary with a red wedding on Alicia. Winners Grace, Havoc and Rosemary. We didn't see Mark Callahan. Didn't come here to fight Brian Myers. He came for an opportunity. He asked Scott to give him a match tonight. He's got something specifically. Cardona will prove that he is always ready. Taylor Wilde vignette. Let's Get Wild confirmed that she is returning soon. That is awesome. Susan is snapping. It feels like she is slowly reverting back to Susie or Sue Young. Matt Cardona versus Jake Something winner. No contest because Brian Myers attacks both men. It's not a bad match till Bad Mood Brian gets involved. When Myers grabs the mic, he has had time to do some soul searching and accept his match at Rebellion. Except to take the roster cut, he does the old Raven pose. Myers looked awesome. In the land of the blind, the one-eye fool is king. I like that strike. Triple XL don't believe Trey Mcgill when he says he isn't interested in saving Sami Callahan tonight. They say it sounds like an excuse and he's lacking passion. Eric Young says, in every great war there are important battles. This game's same has got a match, so Storm gives Harris the rest of their chips. And it's Chris Sabin versus Dina. Sabin fought back and delivered a Fisherman's Buster for the 2. Dina recovered and hangs Sabin up on the top turnbuckles, driving the air out of him with a running knee to the ribs. The heel continues his relentless ways, raking at the eyes of Sabin. The champion somehow recovered and earned the victory. Dina looked good. His offense is kind of wicked. And then Young gets on the Titantron. Dina sets the trap for tonight. They have Chris Harris. Rhino comes in gores Storm. By Designer played an absolute blinder. It wasn't about winning or losing for Dina. Harris down so Eric can have his way. We see Ace Austin and Madman fall to the backstage. Josh Alexander interrupts this conversation. Tells them Austin is involved in a triple threat match with him at Rebellion for the X Division title. Of course, the other guy is TJP. They argue about who's going to win. Tommy Dreamer shows up to book a tag team match between them, which settles things right down. Dreamer then asks Eric Young if he thinks he can keep getting away with things. He's not buying into Young's BS about everything being a sickness, etc. Young threatens to get rid of him. Dreamer offers him a tag team match at Hardcore Justice. Young accepts but says he brought this on himself. Jazz gives us a backstory of her early days in wrestling. How she got in ECW, having to change how she works in WWE. In the back of her mind, she's always wanted to be part of Impact. There's no way she could turn down a chance at winning tag team gold. She had a chance to win the Knockouts title. And the only reason she didn't win was because of interference. At Hardcore Justice, she's putting her career on the line against Jenna Price's title. She will become champion. And then we see Pratzo watching the package and it made her emotional. It reminds her of watching wrestling as a child. Just helped to pave the way for girls like her. But what she built in the past is crushed under the rubble of what she has built. Pratzo is building a new foundation for the next generation of wrestlers. The only way to do right by Jazz is to go out there and not be defeated and give back by retiring her. This is brilliant by both. And then Tommy Dreamer saw what Brian Myers did out there. He's always pissing people off. Jake Something wants a match against him. At Hardcore Justice, Tommy's the booker, so he's putting him against Jake Something in a blind games match. In other words, it's a blindfold hardcore match. Myers thinks it's stupid and walks away ranting. And then our main event for the first Impact Thursday back is Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus Rich Swann, Willie Mack and Eddie Edwards. The babyfaces wipe Omega, Anderson and Gallows out with stereo dives, heading into a break. Back from timeout, the Hill seized control of the match, driving Edwards to the mat and working him over in the corner. Edwards created separation and tagged Matt into the match. The form excellent Gallows and Omega. He's on fire, baby. The Good Brothers and the AEW World Champion again gained control of the match, delivering a triple splash. Swan broke up the pin with a frog splash. Swan then teed off on Omega, escaped the one-winged aim, second rope 450. Don Callis pulled him off before he could earn the pinfall victory. Anderson tagged himself in and scored the near fall on Swan. Mack and Edwards entered the fray to clear Omega and Gallows out, and Swan scored the pinfall victory over Anderson. This was Omega, even though he didn't get pinned, his first loss in Impact Wrestling. Swan looked really motivated. This was a great main event. Another really, really good Impact. Alright, we move on to Hardcore Justice, April 10th. We'll run through the card quickly. Impact Knockouts Championship versus Career, Jenna Pratzo versus Jazz. We've got Hardcore War, Violent by Design versus Team Dreamer. Number Contenders Knockout Championship 6-way match. Grace, Rosemary, Havoc, Dashwood, Alicia and Susan. Hardcore Blindfold match, Brian Myers versus Jake Something. Charlie Legal, Shira versus Ananda. Doc Gallows versus Black Taurus. But let's start a triple threat match. Ace Austin versus TJP versus Josh Alexander, who would be each's tag team partners. Well, it's going to be a fun match, and TJP has picked Fala Bar to team up with him. Of course, Ace Austin has picked Madman Fulton, and Josh Alexander has signed P.T. Williams as his tag team partner. We love seeing the Canadian. This was brilliant, and what great shape P.T. Williams is as well. Bar Alexander started off with Bar, took some of Alexander's best shot without flinching. Williams and TJP were next, and Williams looked like he hasn't missed a beat in the Impact Zone, as he and TJP put on a technical clinic. Austin and Fulton gained the upper hand and worked over Bar, but Bar used his size to an advantage until Williams tagged in. Fulton and Austin's chemistry as a team was on full display as they gained the upper hand on Alexander. TJP and Bar took out Fulton, and TJP hit the Mamba Splash on, tagged in and tried to steal the win. Alexander got the knees up to counter TJP's Mamba Splash, and Williams hit a Canadian Destroyer on TJP. Then Alexander slapped on an ankle lock on Fala Bar for the victory. This was an awesome way to start, and we love seeing P.T. Williams back in action. Really, really enjoyable opener. Going to give it a 3 3/4 out of 5 to start off. Prediction-wise, the WNR Dan came back to give his Impact predictions. Dan went for TJP, WNR went for Josh Alexander. So JR is 1-0 up at this point. Poll-wise, Josh's team 50%, Ace Austin's 33%, TJP 17%. Charlie Legal match next, Shira versus Hernandez. Shira and Hernandez exchanged shoulder blocks and no one moved, but Shira's power soon became evident, as did Hernandez's experience. He was the first to grab a chair, but Shira was first to use it when he body slammed Hernandez on it. Shira and Hernandez's furniture rearrangement outside the ring with Big Boot by using the chairs on Hernandez, but he returned the favour by slamming him onto 2 others. Hernandez put chairs in the ropes in the opposite corner and threw Shira into him and kicked Shira's family jewels for good measure. Shira Lowe managed to turn the tide with a series of clotheslines and a spine buster, and it worked Hernandez over with a chair on the floor. Hernandez threw a bunch of chairs in the ring, headed to the top rope when Shira caught him and suplexed him onto a pile of chairs. Now had Shira beat back Rohit Raju with a chair and encouraged Shira to pin him. Afterwards, Rohit pleaded his case to Shira's hand, and Shira accepted his apology. So it looks like those two are back together, and Shira gets a big win over Hernandez. Well, this wasn't the best, but I mean, what did we expect? We weren't expecting Gotch, Hackenschmidt, were we? 3 out of 5 for that match. Prediction-wise, I went Shira, Dan went Hernandez, so I'm 2-0 up. Poll-wise, Hernandez got 60% of the vote. Backstage, Triple XL joins James Storm and Chris Sabin for a drinking match at Swingers Palace, and Matt Cardona came in and got into it with Swinger. Dreamer called match time and said Swinger and Cardona have a Great American Bash match tonight. We then get Doc Gallows versus Black Taurus, and Toulouse's speed gave him the edge early, and he hit a dragon screw through the ropes, but Gallows quickly recovered with a clothesline. Gallows dominated early as he hit Taurus with some heavy shots. Black Taurus gave some momentum with some kicks, but Gallows' uppercut helped him regain the upper hand. Well, Gallows took to the floor and over the guardrails. Back in the ring, Gallows continued to dominate as it looked like his old swagger back, and it finished looking past his opponent. Taurus gained the upper hand with a headbutt, a 619 and a missile dropkick. Anderson distracted Taurus and Steve went after him, but Gallows hit a kick and then set up a powerbomb for the win. I mean, talk about filler. Decay may be my favourite entrance in Impact, though. I do love the way they do it, the setup, and of course the music itself. I mean, this match wasn't terrible. Two big men, but I think Gallows flatters to deceive sometimes. I think we expected maybe a little bit more. A 3.25 out of 5. Both went for Doc in this one, so it's 3-1 overall. Poll-wise, Doc got 62% the vote. The match was not originally on the card. The Crate American Bash, Cardona versus Swinger. Each corner had a crate, and each crate had a weapon inside that can be used against his opponent. This is going to be interesting and quick. Swinger tried to distract Cardona, went for a crate to start off, but Cardona caught him for a quick pin attempt. After hitting a snapmare, Swinger broke out Ric Flair's strut. Cardona pulled out an old Hulk Hogan pose. Swinger hit a low blow to gain the upper hand and went to work. He pulled a picture of Scott Hall in a frame, but it dropped into the ringside when Cardona went after him. That was a reference to when, and we've mentioned it on the WNR podcast as well, if you go back to the worst matches in 2000, Jeff Jarrett and Booker T had this kind of the matchup, and Scott Hall as a pitcher was one of the options. Swinger kept working on Cardona with several clean holds for trying to go for a second box, but Cardona stopped with a jawbreaker. Swinger knocked Cardona off the ropes to keep him away from a crate that opened it and formed a rat trap that snapped closed his fingers on his left hand. Swinger collapsed on the mat every time Cardona tried to lift him up, and he tried to bait Cardona and nearly got away with it. Cardona opened the crate and closed it after. Swinger found brass knuckles in the other one, but Cardona ducked and hit a body press for the win. He grabbed the last crate and took it with him, looking pleased at the side. 3 out of 5. Bit pointless. I don't find Swinger that funny, to be fair. Prediction wise, both went Cardona, so 4-2. Of course, this was just Alice, there was no poll. And then we saw RVD versus Sabu. I mean, there is really no need to show classic matches during a pay-per-view or special. You're watching it to find out the talent now. Just book a couple extra matches. I'm putting this here. There can be marks for WWE sometimes, and ECW. And then we see Sammy Guevara headed to the ring. Sammy Callahan, apologies there, and there's a misconception about him. He's not a bad guy, he just wants best for people. We pointed out what he did for Trey Mcgill when he beat him up, brought out his passion, and Trell knows he's right. I was just to say, Guevara would never be an Impact. Callahan said he's there to teach Trey another lesson in passion, and passion is about talking about what you want. He wants to be on Hardcore Justice, so he puts out an open challenge to anyone in the back. And that challenge is Trey's top student, Sammy corrupted a few weeks ago. Sammy told him to take the first shot, that steps back. So we see Bill missing a drop kick, and Sammy hits a clothesline, urged Bill to give him his best shot. He then works on his fingers and bit him. He then toyed with him, it hit and exploded on the floor before casually rolling the ring to allow a count out. Bill barely made it in the ring, and Sammy sarcastically applauded him. After the flash by Bill, Sammy hit a package pile drive. Again, pointless. This is 3 out of 5. Just bog. It was 2.5. You know what I mean? Bog standard stuff. Predictions both went Sammy 5-3. No poll. After that, all wasted time. We're back to the main card. Hardcore blindfold match. It's Brian Myers versus Jake Something. The only way to be disqualified is if they remove the blindfold. Sees it. Very reminiscent of Jake the Snake versus Rick the Model Martel at WrestleMania as well. Beat it, he hit a flat line and went for a pin, but Jake was on his stomach. That was very funny. Jake then hit a series of short clotheslines while holding onto Myers' wrist, but Myers pulled the ref between them, put his mask up, and hit a couple of super kicks for reviving the ref. Mark Cardona came out with a crate from earlier. Then he slid the crate to Jake, and Jake hit Myers with it and hit a black hole slam. The crate was for the wrestling action figures. This was a pretty cool match, and I loved how they worked it. This actually made me laugh, the reverse cover. Could only get involved, makes me think Myers wins at the pay-per-view. Myers looks great at the moment. 3 3/4 out of 5. Prediction-wise, both went Myers. First one wrong for me. Still 5-3. Poll-wise, Jake Something got 56% of the vote. On to the number 1 contenders, Impact Knockouts Championship 6-way weapons match. Jordan Grace, Rosemary, Havoc, Tenille Dashwood, Alicia and Susan. And Susan came out and the music switched to Su Yung. And Su joined her on the stage and appeared to attack or absorb her. Su Yung headed to the ring, and this changes things drastically. Everyone's focused on Su, and Tenille rolled out the ring. Alicia went after Grace, while Rosemary and Havoc Su. Su quickly went after him, and Rosemary and Havoc went head to head. Alicia stapled Tenille's backside as the others slowly entered the ring, surrounded by Tenille, who dropped to her knees. Caleb tried to intercede, and Alicia stapled him. They took turns nailing with rights for a comedic break. Su and Grace soon went after each other, and Rosemary wrapped a noose around Su's neck and hit a spear. Rosemary dumped thumbtacks on the floor and found herself on them after Alicia reversed the slam. Sue locked a mandible claw on Alicia and took her out of the ring. Havoc and Grace squared off, but Nevaeh threw powder in Havoc's face to give Grace the edge. Grace hit a Vader bomb on Havoc, but Caleb pulled her off and hit Grace with a super kick so Tenille could sneak in and steal the pin. This was my first experience with Sue Young. I've seen Susan, not seen Sue Young. I'm really, really going to love this. I just know it. It's kind of you're feeling in the character. And the way they did it as well, the cut into using her in there was really, really well done as well. Really good match. I liked everyone involved. Everyone tried it. I mean, like I said, thumbtack, core street fight kind of thing. The right person wanted to Neil Dashwood. Really, really good. 4 out of 5 for me. Predictions down went Jordan Grace. JR went to Neil Dashwood. So 6-3 to JR at the moment. Poll-wise, still got 57% of the vote. Rosemary, 29%. And then in Springer's Palace, Triple XL and Storm Sabin continued a drinking match with ping pong balls, and it quickly devolved into a brawl that Stable and Storm won easily. It's pretty cool when they did their version of Vincent McMahon's "He's got a pin." Also said Storm also said glorious as well, which was quite cool. And then the co-main event, which was a bit surprised actually, it wasn't the main event for what was on the line. The Impact Knockouts Championship versus the career of Jazz. Like I said, Deanna Pratzo versus Jazz. Jazz took early advantage with strikes and kicks, but Pratzo took control working on Jazz's left arm. She was relentless in her assault on the arm while mixing in pin attempts here when she controlled the match. But Jazz wasn't finished as she fought free, but Pratzo hit a flatliner for a near fall. Pratzo then tied Jazz up in the bottom rope and hit a basement dropkick on her injured shoulder. All the while, Jazz refused to quit. Jazz took the fight to the floor and she took over after throwing Pratzo and lived from under the ring. Jazz had a great flurry of attacks and he scored a pinfall. Pratzo grabbed the championship belt and swung, but Jazz ducked and hit a Samoan drop and went for a chair. So the chair shots to Pratzo led a DDT on the chair, but it wasn't enough. Pratzo hit a pump kick, knee, and a rolling exploder, and then the Queen's Gambit for the win. This was a great match, and we're sad to see Jazz's career end, but it was a great run, and we loved every minute of it. Hashtag thank you, Jazz. Grace come out and the two shared a moment in the ring as they held each other, and Grace helped her to defeat. Really good stuff, and Jonah seemed moved by what happened as well, so you could just tell it meant a little bit more. 4 out of 5. Both went Jenna Pratzo, so it's 7-4 to JR. Poll-wise, Jazz got 53% of the vote. And now on to the main event. It's a hardcore war. It's violent by design. Eric Young, Joe Doring, Rhino and Dina versus Tommy Dreamer, Swan, Mac and Edwards. But backstage, Dreamer was attacked and the doctor said he can't wrestle. Scott D'Amore told Edwards to go to the ring. Edwards started off but forgot his kendo stick and Dina came out with a crowbar or something. Edwards jumped Dina from behind and he hammered away on Dina, who fought back and gained the upper hand in the exchange blows. Edwards hit a belly-to-belly to send him to the floor, then went out afterwards. Edwards grabbed a chair, but Dina kicked him before he could use it. Edwards hit a backpack pile driver, the clock ticked down, and Rhino came out with a kendo stick. Edwards grabbed a chair, but Dina attacked from behind and the beatdown commenced. At least the next one will come out to even the odds. Willie Mack did come out with Kenny. Edwards kendo stick and with a chain junkyard dog style. Mac took Dina and Rhino with a chain wrapped fist. They sent Rhino. Edwards took Kenny and wore him out with Dina. Edwards found a toaster and tossed it to Mac, and Mac placed it at Dina's junk and hit it with a chain wrapped fist. Doreen came out next and then Doreen, but he just ran through a clothesline and a kendo stick. Next to come out was Rich Swan, and he had a table and a traffic sign. Swan hit Doreen low and high, then took Dina and Rhino with a handicap parking sign and kicks. Swan and Edwards brought the table to the ring as Eric Young came out with a hockey stick. He cleaned house with a stick and looked bleak with the numbers against Tommy Dreamer. The clock ticked down, but who will come out? Trey Mcgill with a golf club, and he took out Young and Dina with scorpion kicks and a net breaker, then knocked Rhino off the ring. Doring edited his run with a crossbody. A series of finishing move follows and Rhino drove swim for a prop table for a near pinfall. A quadruple powerbomb by Doring on Young, Mac, Swan and Edwards off the top rope was an impressive sight. Mac fought Dina, Rhino and Young himself, but Dina hit him with a trash can lid and Young hit the pile driver for the win. Emotions ran high, but this match is special with everything we expect and more. Slow. Trey was a pleasant surprise. Joe looked great. The Tower of Doom was another brilliant thing. Meteora through the table was awesome with Trey Mcgill taking out Joe Doring. The right team won and Young wrestled this with a torn ACL. This was a good main event. Another 4 out of 5. Predictions. Dan went Dreamer. I went for Violent by Design. So final scores 8-4 overall to JR. I'm back in the game. Dreamer's team got 83% of the vote, but it has to be Jazz versus Jenna Pratzo. MVP Joe Doring, because he did look like a monster in this one. 7 3/4 out of 10 overall. We lost an hour of unneeded shit. Like we said, we had 7 matches on the card, but that Sabu versus RVD match, the Sammy coming out, it just felt so like a normal episode of Impact, and this was meant to be special, and especially if people are trying to watch it before WrestleMania, then it needs to kind of stand out, We move on to the final Impact, April 15th. And the top 2 contenders to the X Division Championship squared off in the opening contest as Josh Alexander and TJP battled in single competition. What a great match this was. To go towards the end, we see an ankle lock by Josh, but TJP countered out of it and into an armbar. Alexander countered that into another ankle lock. The Canadian fed the former X Division champion his leg, but TJP delivered a side suplex. He tried for a Mamba Splash, but Alexander caught him in the ankle lock. More reversals and counters gave way to Alexander delivering divine intervention for the pinfall victory. This was a great wrestling match. Matt Starbuck's stuff was great. The end sequence was brilliant. Great match. Josh is a star. We get another Taylor Wilde video, except this time we see her face. Welcome back, Taylor. Anybody that doesn't know Taylor Wilde, former Knockouts tag team and women's champion as well. One with a big upset back in the day. I think 2010 it was as well. So a lot of history there. We then see the Good Brothers, Callahan, accompanied by Doc Gallows, battling Decay's Crazy Steve, accompanied by Rosemary Black Toulouse. Anderson, the competitor, pinned in last week's 6-man tag team event, sought to regain momentum with a victory. Machine Gun dominated the action, coming out the break, wearing Steve down and working a headlock. The former Circus Clown fought his way back into the match and rolled late until Gallows fired a distraction by verbally sparring with Rosemary on the floor. Anderson took advantage of the situation, delivered his trademark spinebuster pin to pick up the win. This was a little more than a squash. And it looks to me as if the Good Brothers are maybe a little bit more motivated than they are in Impact. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong by that, We see Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. What are the odds of him walking out the pay-per-view still champion? So he gives him some bad odds, but you don't like to hear that. TGP and Alexander walk in and talk about their odds. Petey Williams, just as Little Pity Pump walks in and starts cutting a Steiner math promo. This was epic. All the girls are gobsmacked, the mouths are wide open, the numbers don't lie. Alexander likes Lowe's odds. This was awesome, and Petey is still ripped. And then Eddie Edwards and Mac are out in the ring because Violent by Design think it's a good move to attack Tommy Dream for the match at Hardcore Justice. They're out here to make confidence. He'll be in there with them. They are looking for a fight. Take an ass whooping like a man, Eric Young. Well, here comes VBD. Young said it was beautiful when they took out Dreamer when he missed most of not being able to shove his fist down his fat throat. One thing he's not Lowe's a liar. He told Eddie he was going to hurt him and take his world title. Standing there right now, they had nothing to do with Dreamer's attack. Edwards doesn't believe him. James Storm and Chris Sabin join the party to even the odds. It's mayhem in the Impact Zone. They fight VBD off. Storm challenged them to a match at Rebellion. They could do the tango, but at the end of the night, they'll be doing the waltz all over their dumbasses. Sorry, but your damn luck. Well, they need to be on the pay-per-view. They're all good talent. It's an okay segment for anybody that didn't see Hardcore Justice. Scott D'Amore catch up with Jenna Pratzo and Susan. He tells them that they aren't allowed to go in the ring and interrupt Jazz's retirement ceremony. Jonah says they weren't planning it anyways. Tenille Dashwood's new story is called It's All About Me. She's taken over for where Madison Rain left off, taking a set and everything. Her first guest is Gian Miller. It works differently because the guests ask her the questions, not the other way around. Tenille says she started the women's revolution, but it's funny because she hasn't become a champion yet. When she faced Jenna, it would be all about her. Manuva's confused if she's the host. Apparently not. I mean, this was okay, but I think Tenille will need to show her killer edge to win the title. Move on to Jazz's retirement ceremony. She came to Impact Hope for one more title run, but that didn't happen at Hardcore Justice. Going into the match, she knew Deanna would give her a run for her money. Jazz felt she had the fire from 15 years ago, but Deanna, being a true champion that she is, knows that she's the present and future of women's wrestling. She thanks Jordan for giving her the chance to fight for tag team titles. Jazz back for welcoming her with open arms. The last few months have been the best, which brings her to tonight. Fire and flavour are here. Tash steals his fake crying. Kira Hogan thinks it's about time she goes already. Jordan tells her they weren't invited tonight because they talk too much. This is Jazz's time, so shut up for once in your life. If you're going to say anything, say it in the ring. Fire and Flavour ain't got the time for that. Referee comes out and tells Scott D'Amore he's booking them in a match. Right now, Jazz isn't technically retired yet. We see Fire and Flavour, Kira Hogan, Tash Steele versus Jazz, Jordan Grace. The babyface bang, the babyfaces attack the heels. Grace pummels Steels and Jazz follows suit with Hogan, putting her away and scoring a near pinfall victory for the team. After the match, So we see Hogan then putting her away and scoring a pinfall victory for a team there. Let me just calm down a second. So Jazz and Grace lose. After the match, Jazz continued a speech announcing her retirement from the square circle. She thanked the fans for their love and support as the locker room spilled into the Impact Zone. Tommy Dreamer and the rest of the roster expressed their future Hall of Famer with a round of applause. This was lovely. Nice way to go out. Jazz is a class act. What a career. And backstage, after Fire and Flavor getting a face, Scott D'Amore tells Grace and Jazz they earned a tag team title shot with their win, but Jazz is keeping her word. But that doesn't stop Grace from finding a tag team partner at Rebellion. Jazz has someone lined up. This is exciting. Who could it possibly be? And then ahead of the match at Rebellion, Mark Cardona and Brian Myers participated in a Pick Your Poison match. Cardona picked Myers' opponent first, Jake Something, who defeated Myers in a hardcore blindfold match. Myers overcame an early onslaught by his bigger opponent before forced him to chase him around the ring. Worn down, Something walked right into a roster cut by the opportunist Myers, who scored the victory. Yes, Myers won. This was quick. And then after the match, Myers chose Cardona's opponent, Sami Callahan. The draw attacked Cardona following the break, but Long Island Broski delivered radio silence. Callahan managed to kick out. This was a physical slugfest of a match. Intensified as the action spilled to the floor. Callahan delivered a suplex, seizing control of the belt. Cardona fought back after the break, tried for radio silence again, but Callahan caught him and delivered a powerbomb. Cardona recovered and delivered a Frankenstein for the top. The Death Machine, desperate as the momentum swang, thumped his opponent in the eye and put Cardona away with a package pile driver. This was a really, really good match. Shows you the hierarchy and impact at this moment in time. Matt motivated, and this is his first proper match. I know he's had matches before, but this is the kind of the first one you go, no, he does look quite good. After the match, Callahan grabbed the phone and he said, just took care of that piece of trash. Now on to bigger and better things. Trey Mcgill, get your ass out here. Miguel and Callahan expressed his pride in the former rascal for fighting, taking a stand and demonstrating a level of passion. He said Miguel's bad temper is what's going to get him to the next level, especially when he lets the draw mentor him. Let's take over. But Trey refused. Yeah, I mean, he should have accepted. Callahan revealed he took out Dreamer at Hardcore Justice, opened up an opportunity for Miguel to appear on the card. Miguel unloaded on Callahan, but the Hills took the upper hand and rocked Miguel with a clothesline. The babyface dared Callahan to come on, aimed to hit chair shots to the face. He then delivered an exclamation point and attack by the way of an exploder onto the chair. This was awesome. This has been built nicely for months. And then we see Finn Juice have enjoyed watching the Good Brothers struggle and need to know how dangerous they can be. Finn Juice lists off their single and tag team achievements. They have proved themselves to be the number one tag team in the world. At Rebellion, they're going to prove it again. And then Matt Striker and Dina Brown run down the Rebellion card. Sami Callahan and Trey Mcgill will face each other in the last man standing. And I hope the Good Brothers can bring the tag team titles back to Impact. And finally, the main event of the show is the press conference for the AEW Unified Impact World Championship match at Rebellion between Kenny Omega and Rich Swann. Before we get on that, quite interesting, before the Impact, or BTI, as they do the show, like they do in the States on Access TV, you can get it on the Impact Plus app as well, and also available on YouTube. And they had quite a big match. I had Navia versus Havoc, and of course these two have been feuding, or have been tag team partners, as it were, for the past couple of years. Seen them having their problems recently. This is kind of the blow off. I mean, are we surprised that it's happening on before the Impact than it is an actual Impact or the show itself? Maybe this is the start of something. Maybe this will kind of lead to a bigger match down the road, or maybe they just don't see Havoc and Navia as kind of maybe, true women's division stars. But I don't think that's right, because Impact have been treating the women's division quite well at the moment. Well, we've seen Navia nailing Havoc with a couple of kicks to the back and went to the back to the sleeper hold. Havoc got to her feet and hit an elbow, but Navia hit with a couple of rights. Havoc threw into the ropes, but Navia caught herself in the apron. She pulled the ropes down and Havoc went to the floor. She took out Navia's legs and slammed her face first in the apron and the ring stairs. Navia managed to dodge Havoc's charge, and Havoc ran into the ring stairs knee first, and Navia rolled into the ring as the ref continued counting. Havoc made it in just before the 10 count, and Navia met her with some kicks and a near fall. She then looked in the front face hook, but Havoc fought out of it and hit a couple of kicks and run the boots in the corner. Havoc nailed a full running boot and dragged Navia into the middle of the ring for a pin attempt. Navia sent Havoc into the turnbuckle, hit a kick to the face for one more near pinfall. Navia hit a couple of forearms, but Havoc responded with a pair of kicks around the knee and a leg drop for the win. This was a good one that cemented Navia in the knockout division, and Havoc was able to get some closure as well. But will they continue as frenemies or whatever? We shall. And then finally, like we said, Swann versus Omega press conference on YouTube. You can get the full 42-minute press conference. It's not too bad. I probably enjoyed the NXT press conference a little bit more, but it's still doing well. My only thing is, why wasn't this featured on Dynamite? I mean, like I said, on ITV, they don't show anything like that. I don't know if it's a case of they show it in America or whatever, but this is title for title, so AEW need to kind of give it some credit. I would like to see on the Dynamite show coming up, you know, a little bit of hype for Rich Swann, maybe even a fucking appearance, because at the moment, Impact are going all out for AEW, and I don't think it's getting the other way round. But we see Jerry Lynn and Tony Khan on one side, Rich Swann and Scott D'Amore on the other. Kenny Omega isn't there yet. Josh Matthews, that's where he is now, asks the media for the question. Swan answers first. He's better adversity in his life. When he becomes the AEW Unified Impact Champion the same night, it's going to make history. Josh talks about the unification match between Lou Thesz and Bruno Sammartino, never getting past the talking stage. He asks how Impact World title if Kenny Omega was to win. Also, how can there be a certified winner? Tony Khan's confident Omega will win and can work the schedule for both companies. He also expects Rich Swann to be able to handle both schedules if he won. D'Amore thinks it's great that both Impact and AEW are confident they can pull this off for the good professional wrestling. Tony Khan says AEW has a great track record with matches ending definitively. There's no worry there. Kenny Omega finally shows up with Don Callis. Business has picked up. Callis has asked the question, was he going to stop playing both sides? He's working for Impact, but he's also managing Omega on the end. Don says it's turned into a roast. He's taken over from Josh. Don says Rich is a great champion. He's advocated for him to be in the main event for Bound of Glory. Omega will owe his family. So without further ado, the man who brought you Jericho versus Omega, and the reason we're all here, he's announced on the podium, the greatest living athlete, the greatest wrestler in the history of the industry, ladies and gentlemen, the AEW World Champion, Kenny, by God, Omega. Kenny Omega says he's talked about his matches and confidence is natural to him. He's a professional, a legend. Look how he's dressed. He's taking this serious. Rich has never been here before. He understands why he's a little bit scared. He wants his target, and he picked the cheap outfit he wears today. Kenny says he has to put he's put on his earth to make a difference. Swan is here because he likes wrestling. For that, Kenny gives him a lot of credit. But now we're here, he can say with confidence that Swan doesn't belong here. Not in this history-making event. Years from now, when everyone looks back at the tapes of matches at Unified Champions across America, the match that created the legacy of Kenny Omega, when they look back, no one will know or care of Rich Swann. Again, no disrespect. In fact, he hopes he brings his A game. Swann is taking part of history. This will be the last time it will be the cordial with Swann. It will be a war rebellion. Omega extends his hand out for a handshake. Swann attacks Omega, and security had to step in and break it up. And that's how the show ends. Of course, let's not forget, Rebellion pay-per-view is scheduled now for April 25th. It's been moved from Saturday to Sunday. That was due to the fact that it was clashing with a UFC event as well. This was good. But like I said, would have felt bigger on Dynamite. This is good stuff. Result seems a foregone conclusion now with Omega winning, but another game of Impact. I'm really ready for the pay-per-view. Of course, Rebellion with the Impact Go Home will happen next weekend. We'll have the catch-up with AEW, and then the Wednesday after we'll bring you the Rebellion pay-per-view. Of course, the Ultimate One joining us there. But Impact as a whole is just really, really enjoyable. And anybody that has been catching up recently can't really fault it. The way they're giving the storylines, the backstage segments as well. It's become one of my favourite programs. I say that in NXT UK, I don't find it a slog really at this moment. Yeah, Dynamite has its moments, the same with NXT as well. And of course, we'll be bringing everything to you. And of course, the huge news as well. The anniversary show will be May 4th, celebrating 7 years of the WNR podcast. And of course, like I said, our next episode next week, we AEW catch up, a prelude to AEW, and then the Rebellion pay-per-view afterwards. Before we go, our follow week is Kirk Taylor. Don't forget to follow us across social media. At the WNRJR, WNR also on Facebook and Instagram, across the Google platform. Send us an email, the WNR podcast at gmail.com, and YouTube, the podcast, where all the latest clips and podcasts at the same time. You should do SoundCloud on your phone, also Spotify and iTunes, where you can download, subscribe, rate and review there. So that's it. Like I said, next Sunday, AEW Prelude, and then Impact Rebellion, both with the Ultimate One. I'd just like to thank everybody that enjoyed WrestleMania week, be it the Hall of Fame ceremony, NXT update, and WrestleMania show itself. I'd like to thank you for all the responses and comments across Twitter, and of course the emails and the responses from the listeners as well. But like I said, we know what's coming next. Until then, I've been James Rowlands. Thanks for listening, everybody, and bye.